this spring when he was 6 years old, when he underwent a procedure to medically lengthen his leg to correct a leg deformity that he was born with. He had his leg surgically broken and a metal external fixator attached to his lower bones with 9 pins to his leg. He was in the hospital for 5 days following the initial surgery. And it was during this time that I realized that pediatric floors and hospitals all over the world are filled with a small army of children. And these kids and that my son had joined their army. And they are fighting syndromes, they're fighting diseases, they're fighting illnesses and surgical recoveries. But besides that, they're also battling against loneliness, sadness, and frustration for a loss of what it feels like to not be a kid anymore. And I remember as a parent, I remember thinking, it's harder to watch my child fight this battle than what it was to watch him struggle against what he was in the hospital for in the first place. And I remember sitting there thinking that he had been robbed of what it was like to be a kid. My husband and I struggled to find ways to keep Jack comfortable and comforted. And one thing that worked best for him was his stuffed animals. And some of his stuffed animals were old, and they had been with him through many of his tough times. And their familiarity brought him a comfort. But some of his stuffed animals were new ones, gifts that he had received from a teacher and a friend. And the newness of these lent an excitement and a distraction that he found comfort in as well. And when we came home from the hospital, it was like bringing home a new child. We had a once active little boy who was now confined to a wheelchair. It took about 2 weeks, and Jack was kind of back to feeling like himself again. And at this time, we started the actual lengthening of the bones. And what we did was he had 6 rods attached to the fixator, and every day we would turn each of the rods and force his bones to grow 1 millimeter a day. We did this for 50 days, and he grew 5 centimeters of new bones in his leg. And throughout this, and even now, he was in therapy 4 times a week. And during all this, he was a superstar. He shocked his doctors, his therapists, and everyone that loved him by walking, swimming, and he even learned how to ride a bike with a fixator on. But more importantly, he seemed to develop a sense of compassion and understanding for others. And about a month after he came home from the hospital, we were talking with him about his stuffed animal. And he told us that he wished every kid in the hospital had had a stuffed animal like he did. And I explained to him that there are charities and foundations that make sure that kids that don't have their own stuffed animals can get them. And he said, well, I want to start a charity. And I said, well, what would you name it? And without skipping a beat, he said, Little Hands Make a Big Difference. And so his initial goal was to raise $100. He wanted to go to the Build-A-Bear store and build 4 teddy bears to donate. He had a lemonade stand, and his first lemonade stand he raised $12. And that encouraged him enough to keep going. And before long, we knew it, donations were pouring in, and he was at Build-A-Bear making 20 stuffed animals that he donated here to Rockford Memorial. To date, Little Hands Make a Big Difference have donated a Power Wheels electric 4-wheeler for someone to ride on, 50 stuffed animals, and a carload of toys here today. And we currently have the funding to donate 90 more stuffed animals and 3 video game systems. So in 6 short months, and in the midst of this intense leg lengthening procedure, Jack raised over $4,000.
When I was in the hospital, I was sad because I was lonely. I wanted to go home to my brother and sister and my toys. The thing that made me feel better in the hospital was my stuffed animals. Other kids that are in the hospital feel sad and want to get out of the hospital and feel like a kid again. I started a charity because I wanted to make other kids in the hospital feel happy and give them something to play with so they don't think about being sick. The best part of having my own charity is making the bears and giving them to kids. Thank you to everyone that donated toys today. Merry Christmas.
I just wanted to say thank you again for the invitation to be here today, and for us, our family, to turn what's been a rough situation into something so positive has been a bigger blessing and a bigger gift than we could ever hope to give. And I think Jack is a good reminder to all of us, something that we already know, that it is better to give than to receive. And so on behalf of the recipients of all of the gifts today, I just want to thank all of the donors, because these gifts are really going to make a difference in the lives of these kids and in the lives of the parents, just to see your kids be excited and to feel like a kid again. So thank you for your generosity. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.